1, 2, no. Hi, welcome to Video and
Vinyl Club.
Video and Vinyl Club. I'm one of your co-hosts, Emmy Wildwood. I'm a musician and art director.
And I'm Erin Mars, and I am a writer, a director, a musician, probably a million other things too, and very, very passionate about music and movies. So we're
Yeah.
here to chat about that stuff with you. We're super excited about it as these spaces in IRL have started to disappear. The classic record stores, obviously, there's nowhere to rent movies anymore because who does that, really? But those were spaces in the past where you could go and meet like-minded people or people who had different interests than you, but learn about new cool stuff and maybe expand your tastes, learn facts and a little bit of history that you wouldn't know from, the cute kid that's right across the counter from you, trying to get you to buy more CDs or whatever.
Yeah, and maybe you'd find out about movies that maybe weren't so recent, something from 10 years ago, something from a year ago, and be able to pick it up on VHS or buy, sell, and trade it, share it with somebody else, and get something new. And that's sort of the attitude we're trying to bring here, is to bring you something new that you don't know about and can get excited about.
Absolutely. And along the way, we are also learning and exploring too. So, as you listen to our podcast, if you have any ideas for us about films or music that you would like us to check out, please let us know. We love to learn new things. And that's part of the conversation that we want to have with you too. So,
Yes,
let's
and
get into it.
yeah, I'm so excited. So this weekend, Erin told me I needed to go see the movie The Substance, and I promptly went, even though I was very hesitant, and Erin will tell you why, but I did it, and I'm so glad I did it. Erin, take it away.
So, The Substance is a film that actually opened this weekend. It won audience choice at the Toronto Film Festival that just happened, I think
Yeah,
last week or the week before.
a lot of praise on the internet.
Huge praise for this film. Demi Moore is the star, and it was written and directed by this French director. Her name is Coralie Farget. I think I'm saying it right. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Again, correct me if you know. No problem in learning new things. This was the second major film that she has put out. The first film that she put out in 2017 was called Revenge. That's another film I have not personally seen, but what I have read about it, it's a revenge film from the point of view of the person who was the victim, right? So the survivor kind of getting their level of revenge, which I always think is a really interesting take on things. And there's another film that immediately comes to mind when we're talking about revenge films, which to me is Promising Young Woman, which if you haven't
Oh, yeah,
seen, that's
I
a
saw it.
fantastic film to watch, and we can maybe talk about that on another
Yeah.
podcast. But so she definitely has a certain point of view that she establishes as a director and as a writer, which is very, very present in The Substance. So a quick recap on what the storyline is of The Substance is an aging starlet. And it kind of, to me, was reminiscent of almost like a Jane Fonda type, which is played by Demi Moore. On her 50th birthday, she's let go by the network that has supported her for many, many years and her exercise show because they need to find somebody younger and hotter and fitter. And so she leaves pretty despondent. And on her way home, unfortunately, gets into a car accident, which then leads her to go to the hospital where she is slipped a USB drive with a note about something called The Substance. And she checks it out and says, it changed my life. She throws it away. She's like, what the hell is this? And then eventually comes back, makes the call to this number, and the story goes from there. So, Emmy, as I called you immediately when I got into my car after watching this film, I was, and I still am, absolutely blown away by
Oh
this
yeah.
film. The
Yes.
casting, absolutely phenomenal.
I loved Demi Moore. I loved Margaret Qualley. You know, Margaret Qualley is Annie McDowell's daughter.
Ah, okay, okay. She's a
Yeah.
fantastic actor.
And
I mean,
she's married to Jack Antonoff, who
yes,
is
okay.
it was in the band Fun, but then it has gone on to produce every major Taylor Swift record in the last 5 years, Lana Del Rey's most incredible album, and well, anyways,
I
I'll
just know
remember.
that he's a huge producer. Um,
Enormous.
yeah. So
Hmm.
he knows kind of what's up. So that's great that they're a couple. I'm sure their dinner parties are very, very fun.
Yeah.
Um, she's also, especially in this film, unbelievably attractive. I mean,
Oh
talk
yeah.
about, you have Demi Moore, who is so gorgeous. And I think
She
part
was
of the premise,
beautiful. Yeah.
so knockout gorgeous. And she's actually older than 50, I think. She's not, but in this film, she's playing somebody who just turned 50, which is very believable because to me, you could tell me
She's
she's like,
60. She's
she's
60.
60.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She's so, absolutely beautiful woman.
Amazing.
And one of the points in this film that I think kind of pushes the whole thing is the way that as women age, we lose our value in society. And that comes across, her getting fired and getting replaced really in this show with a younger person. Some would say a younger version of her, not giving anything really away there.
Yeah.
Don't want to share any spoilers because we really would love you to see the film.
Yes.
So quickly, can you tell me, Emmy, what was one of your favorite moments of the film? And we can be abstract here. You can totally pull it out.
Well, so this is a horror movie.
Yep.
Straight up. This is a horror
Yep.
movie. I
Hmm.
myself have just recently dipped my big toe into watching horror films. I am the definition of squeamish. I got Botox and passed out, and they had to call the ambulance. So I'm not big on Botox. This
Yeah.
movie deals a lot. There's a lot of commentary on beauty procedures, more common ones. A lot of satire about Botox and filler and so forth. And I thought that those were my least favorite scenes. This is not a movie for people who are squeamish, though if you are in the film game to really see some amazing work and you can push through, please go do it because I did and I'm so glad I did. I watched a lot of the more gory scenes through my t-shirt like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Pulling the t-shirt over the face. Yep. Classic.
it it was very moving for me physically to watch
Yes.
this movie. If the emotional backup hadn't been there, if the incredible script hadn't been there, if the incredible acting hadn't been there, if the amazing art direction hadn't been there,
Hmm.
it would have been a lot more difficult to get through. But there was so much redeeming
Yeah.
treats by
Yes.
sticking it through. So to answer your question, I know I went off a little there on a
No, it's
tangent, but
good. Yeah.
I would say that it's hard for me to pick one scene, but that the last 30 minutes of the movie blew my mind.
Yeah.
So the final
Yeah.
scene sequence blew my mind, which I will not give away, but talk about taking something as far as you could possibly take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to
Like,
me,
wow.
absolutely wow. Absolutely wow. If anything, I think this really establishes this director
Uh,
as someone we really want to see more from. At least I do. I really, really want to see what she's going to do next.
yeah,
Um, Coralie clearly has a very strong point of view, is an incredible storyteller, and is with a team of people who know what they're doing. I think it also was a wonderful example to touch
100%.
back on something that you and I have talked about before when we were talking about Beetlejuice, is making anything now seems to be harder from an artistic standpoint because so many different people's opinions can come in and change what the original writer would have wanted or the director would have ideally wanted. This piece to me felt like they had the green light, I should say, go full stop. It's like, you want it, you get it, baby. Like, you do it, you do it. And what an amazing payoff. I don't feel like watching that movie, even for one moment in my mind, and I've often done this, unfortunately, when I watch things, I go, man, it would have been better if that thought never crossed my mind. Never. There's the
No,
most gorgeous shots down hallways, very geometric part, halfway through or even in the early beginning. Just the simplicity of those linear shots, it made me think of Kubrick and Clockwork Orange, of
yes,
things just
yes.
going quickly off the tilt, quickly. It's like a world that's a little bit left of center. So you're still there, you still see the shoreline of reality, but we're pulled slightly off so that you see just how off the rails shit gets more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I felt like this is a director, and a storyteller. So, I mean, she could be like a Stephen King. She could
Oh,
be like a
yeah.
Stanley Kubrick, she
I
could
like
be.
I like that you brought up Clockwork Orange, and this reminded me of a 70s horror film. I felt like I immediately when we discussed talking about this on the pod, the imagery or what it conjured up for me was Carrie meets Wizard of Oz. It
Yes.
had such classic elements to
Yes.
the filmmaking. Some old techniques were used. I
Hmm.
noticed like the layering of just what you were talking about. You told me to go watch in last week's pod. You told me to go watch the scene from directed by Hitchcock that was directed by Salvador Dali
Yes.
and
Surrealism. That
surrealism,
was.
but some of the film techniques, some
Mhm.
old school scary stuff of layering the actual film cuts.
Yeah, the
It reminded me
fadings.
of that. Yeah, it was like they were there was not a lot of the scariest stuff in this felt like nods from older horror films, like maybe even a little Alien in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
so I loved that because the whole thing felt vintage and sparkly and 70s and and skewed, like you're in a nightmare a little bit. Off center is a great way of saying it.
Yeah, and the set played such an important piece. The apartment, so the main character is named Elizabeth Sparkles. So Elizabeth Sparkles has this gorgeous apartment, and it overlooks, I guess, pretty much, and this is it seems like it's set in LA.
Yes, it is.
Overlooks, you know,
Hollywood Boulevard or
Hollywood
something.
Boulevard, and there's this huge billboard that you can see from her apartment. And it used to have a picture of her on it. And that changes as the film goes. But it almost becomes this vehicle that just makes the torture she's experiencing more and more heightened.
And
The
measurable.
and
And measurable.
measurable.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I felt was a very clear theme here was how empty we can be inside if we don't actually love all parts of ourselves.
Yeah. I
You
wondered what
got,
you were
you know what I
I what
mean?
yeah, I wondered what you were gonna say because there's a few things that the theme could be about honoring where you've been and where you're
Yep.
going and where you're going.
Yep.
And how you are responsible for seeing the value in yourself at any point in your life, because while we may be lucky enough to have personal relationships where people see the value in us at any given point in our lives, being in the entertainment industry is totally different. And that you have to take it all with a grain of salt and really stick to your, I mean, really hold on to your soul. You have
Yeah.
to really hold on to your soul. Mhm.
Yeah. And there's also this element throughout of deep
Balance. Oh, sorry.
balance. And I was going to say loneliness,
Oh, yeah.
that when we put ourselves in a place where we are only of commercial value, even to ourselves, when we are only good enough when we have done XYZ. And if we're not on the top, we're gone. We're invisible.
Mhm.
My God, that's a lonely place to be. And isn't that just sets you up for misery? It just
Oh,
sets you
yeah.
up for misery. And the things that will be done to make that misery end. I mean, oh, wow. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow, wow,
Yep.
wow. There was so many great, there was a lot of humor throughout it, I think,
Oh, yeah.
too. I mean,
I
I
was
burst out
laughing.
laughing. Oh, yeah,
Hmm.
burst out laughing. And I really, really, honestly, I feel like I'm going to go see this movie maybe a few more times in the theater if I can, because I really want to see this type of art continue. I really want to see this type of creativity, this type of film, this type of point of view with a female lead, female director, female writer.
Yeah.
Um, it's aggressive. It
It,
also reminded me of some ways of this film called Teeth. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't.
We can watch it and talk about it at another time.
Okay.
That's also kind of like a body horror, and it
Okay.
involves a woman and her body.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the kind of stuff that it's like, this cat's got claws,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
this kitten's got claws. It feels like that. It's like so sweet, sugary, beautiful, beautiful, and
Yeah.
fucking mean as hell.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
And gory. We think of
gory,
like,
man.
we think,
Oh,
yeah, we think of even in horror films as women who, maybe like directing them and writing them as having a more gentle touch, more psychological. No, not, I mean, this is really presenting the gore of what women impose upon themselves, and and a a horrific viewpoint of the places that we can take ourselves, that the worst case scenario. Uh,
absolutely.
and really imagine, I mean, like I said earlier, taking that as far as possible. As women, we ask ourselves what if a lot. We have a lot of what if thinking, and you could take yourself down a rabbit hole. What if this happens and then I die alone in the gutter and I'm ruined? And this is the sort of thinking that we do to ourselves as women, this what if, uh, end of the world kind of thinking. And as a writer, that is, as a female writer, she has fully, fully taken those intrusive thoughts and painted them on a screen, as taken them as far as she could possibly go and shown us what that looks like. The way you could worry about what we do to stay beautiful and young, essentially.
Yeah.
The horror behind all of those.
The nightmare of self.
The nightmare of self, the prison of self, as my best friend's mother would say.
And that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
There's also something to be said about when we're talking about self-hatred and the way that, I think many people have had moments where they really are kind of hard on themselves. And especially if you've ever struggled with depression or anxiety or a combination of those two, um, going back to that second guessing of saying things to yourself, I do everything wrong, or I'm just not this enough. I'm not, tall enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this. I didn't come from the right family. I didn't grow up in the right place. I don't have the right friends. I don't drive the right car. I mean, you can go down this whole what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, but also even more on that, like you're stupid, you're horrible. This level of self-hate can be so fucking dark to the point where
Yeah.
no one can say anything mean to you that you haven't already said something worse to yourself.
Oh yeah.
And there is that embodiment in this film
Yes.
in such a freaking smart, creepy way.
Yeah,
And
because you know what is so amazing about what you're saying right now is I walked out of that movie
yeah,
saying to Nick, my husband, who I went to see it with at our cute little local indie spot, I walked out of that movie saying to him, I can't believe I just got dragged through all of that gore, all of that horrible ride, and I have left feeling so much better about myself. I feel so grateful and happy,
yeah,
and I look great. I was like, yeah, I've got, yeah, I'm not 22 anymore. I'm hot. I like left with all the self-esteem.
yeah,
I was like, how did that happen? That is the biggest twist to this movie. Is like seeing seeing women at different ages. I don't think this is a giveaway, but there is another nod back to the 70s horror film. There is so much nudity in this movie. And
hmm
I applauded the women because Hollywood has the last 10 years things have gotten a little bit, more conservative in the nudity. I think after Me Too,
hmm
people were a little more careful with women on set, but knowing that it's an all-female set, these women just like I mean the bravery of the actresses to show the complete nudity at every age at
hmm
sort of vast different parts of your life. I felt like seeing it together was beautiful. It was like not even, you know, I mean, Demi Moore looks amazing naked, but my point is that there are differences in age and both things seemed equally hot to me.
hmm
Do you know what I mean? It didn't really, I mean, besides the obvious changes that occur in the
yeah.
fantasy part of it, seeing how beautiful that the women were at different ages made me feel like what are we doing being so hard on ourselves? Like,
When we put our ownership of self on somebody else's eyes, we
yes, thank
lose the
you.
power to recognize our own value and our own innate beauty.
Thank
It's
you.
it's no one else's
Thank you.
job. Yeah, it's no one else's
Yes.
job to tell you you're beautiful. It's you, yourself, recognizing that. I think one thing about the film, though, I mean, Demi Moore is absolutely gorgeous, right? So there was a high emphasis on very beautiful people. Okay, so you have Elizabeth Sparkle. She's beautiful. We can even talk about Jane Fonda. Let's go to somebody who's real life. So Jane
Yeah.
Fonda, later in life, she'd been this big movie star, which is kind of the backstory for Elizabeth Sparkle, right? She had had an Oscar. She is a Hollywood star, and Jane Fonda does as well. And in real life, Jane Fonda later came out and talked about how she struggled with an eating disorder, how she struggled with low self-esteem. She had multiple marriages. She dealt with a ton of shit when you really go into her backstory.
Yeah.
Yet she was, and she still is, very beautiful, has not had a problem at all, using everything within her means to keep herself looking a certain way. Does
Mhm.
she, you know, has she aged like a French actress where she looks a little bit older? Not necessarily. She's really, I think, you know, she's had a little bit of tucks and pulls and the whole thing, and that's fine. Good for you, right? Whatever makes you happy is what you should do. But based on that stereotype of like being so, having your whole image, all your value is wrapped up in only that, not having any relationships at all. I mean, Elizabeth Sparkle in the film, and I don't think this is really, we're not giving away any story here. You're really gonna, you find these things out within the first 10 minutes, basically, just based on conversation and what we see.
Yeah.
She has a birthday. She doesn't get any cards from friends. She doesn't have a birthday party where people say, I love you, you're great, look at you. She doesn't have anybody in her world have anything to do with the emotional part of her. The
Mhm.
only part of people who interact with her is as a product. This could basically be a Barbie doll that you take out of the box and go, wow, you're so fun to play with. I'm done playing with you. And it goes back in the box. And
Yes.
in a way, the set feels like that. She's either in a workplace setting, which feels very corporate. The lines are straight. The colors are very bold, but kind of like oversaturated, aggressive, or she's in her pretty box
Barbie Dream
with the
House.
Barbie dream house with the
Yeah.
glass cover, and she's looking out on advertisements of her.
Hmm.
There's really nowhere else she goes. And the
Hmm.
only other places we really see her go, if not a TV set or the offices, is one restaurant when she gets fired with the Dennis Quaid, who totally magnificently plays his role
He's
as
so
the
he's so
head of the network.
yeah,
Gross. You know, they do this
gross.
thing with like a fishbowl lens to really make him look
Yeah.
super, which also reminded me a lot of Clockwork Orange. And I think
Yeah.
she nods to different directors with different things she does. Definitely there's a nod to Carrie in the film. Just with, you know, it's a horror film. It's a horror film.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that gets touched on. But I mean, man, I want to see it like 5 more times, and I want everybody
Yeah.
to see it. I can't even say enough about that. So
Yeah.
I'm so happy you did it. You got there.
I'm so glad. We walked took the walk home from the movie theater talking about it, and we were both horrified and also saying this movie was so good. Like that was amazing. Um, I think that we have touched on a lot of the most important themes. The one last thing that I want to say about the visual bit of the filming and the sets and everything, it is so it is a pleasure to watch every single shot. It is a pleasure to investigate all of the corners of the screen as you watch this movie. It is a pleasure to be washed over by every choice that Coralie has made and that the art direction team has made, as well as the music and soundtrack for this movie was beautiful and powerful and surprising. Surprising. There was definitely moments of surprise. It is so important to us that we don't give too much of this movie away because that's how much we loved it. Like sometimes we can be a little bit of spoiler heads on this pod.
Yeah, yeah. And part of me
But
also wants to be like, we're gonna talk about the whole thing and just fast forward
yeah,
if you don't want to, but maybe we'll do
yeah,
that. Maybe we can revisit it again in a couple months or
yeah,
something.
yes.
Um, I was just looking through as you were talking that I realized we didn't talk about all of the awards that it's already won. So it was nominated at Cannes
Mhm.
uh, for the Palme d'Or.
Yeah,
It won Best Screenplay
yeah.
at Cannes. It was nominated for Best International Film at the Munich Film Festival. It
Wow.
won the People's Choice Award at the Toronto Film Festival.
Wow.
It won the audience award at the Motel X festival.
Wow.
It won, or no, it was a nominee. I know. It's like
A lot.
all of this is to say you're not going to waste your time. There's been a
No.
lot of moments, I'm not going to lie. I go in, or even if I rent something, or I'm like, I'll watch this, you watch something at home. Look, time is our most precious commodity. You know what you can't get back? More effing time. You get
Yep.
365 days in a year, you get 24 hours a day. We have limited time. And when I'm taking my time, and this is a film that's over 2 hours, and I didn't for one friggin' second think, God, is this going to end now? Is this going to end now? No way. Because you're like on a freaking roller coaster. It is just go, 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 go. You're
No.
so pulled in. And it, honest to goodness, has been freaking years since I have felt so absolutely absorbed by a film. Absolutely
Absolutely.
absorbed.
When you talk about artists who are making records, who are doing comedy, who are writing books, most people will say they didn't regret taking things as far as they possibly could. They regret practicing too much restraint. And while restraint can be a very important part of storytelling, when you don't take things as far as you possibly can, you you are depriving the watcher some fun. So she did not deprive us any there was nothing she left it all on the table. There was nothing left to give. It feels fucking great to take part in something like that. I don't know how to
Oh,
explain it other
yeah.
than
Yeah.
it's like getting your face rocked at a show. It's like the last five
Yes.
minutes of you know November Rain or something. Do you know what I mean? It's the
Yes.
last, it's like it's so the peak at the from the dynamics in this movie are incredible. It starts here and it ends here. It's huge. That's the best thing I can say about it is that it she left nothing on the table. I felt like my face was rocked, my face was melted, and and there's like just nothing left to give. Like there were
Yeah.
no holes for me.
No holes. No holes.
Yeah.
The,
So anyways,
and part of the casting, and maybe this is a large part as to why this just really resonated so well, is having Demi Moore in that role. Now, a few years ago, Demi Moore came out with her autobiography, which I
oh
read,
yeah.
and it's on Audible. So if you want to check it out, you can. And this is a woman who grew up with parents who were very young when they had her. And they didn't really know what they were doing as parents. So, in a lot of ways, she has that mythological upbringing that makes many people believe they have a shot at being a Hollywood star coming from nowhere. She really came from nowhere.
Mhm.
And she had a lot of really tough, hard things happen to her growing up. She became pretty addicted to Coke and was an alcoholic and was sober from the time she was pretty much 21.
Wow.
So when she did St. Elmo's Fire, that director really, really wanted her and said, okay, you're going to have to go to rehab, basically. And so they put her into a rehab for that movie. Um, and she came out and continued to have a long, huge career. Um,
Sober?
sober
Wow,
until
cool.
she
Had a relapse.
dated and married Ashton Kutcher, who, to be fair, he was 25, she was 40. I don't think he really understood at that time what sobriety really means, as many people in their mid 20s do not understand.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm giving him too much credit. maybe I'm not. Read her biography. You can judge for yourself on their relationship, but I don't want to get
Right.
into that. But I will
Yeah.
tell you, this is a woman who talk about the way she has used her body in film. She was in Indecent Proposal. She's in The Scarlet Letter, The Juror. She has a movie called Striptease that came out. Now, these are some things that I remember as a kid coming out. I remember my mother specifically with Striptease seeing the poster for it or something, and her making some kind of comment about like she's just not classy, something like
Yeah.
that. And one of the things that happened to her, to Demi too, was she had posed nude for, remember she was on the cover, and this is a
Yes.
deep cut, she was on the cover of Vogue, she was pregnant, and she
Hmm.
had her arms over her breasts, and the shot was taken by Annie Leibovitz, and that came out, and then shortly after that her mom did a nude photo shoot, kind of to be like, I'm hot too, or something. She had a very tricky relationship with her mother, who, because they were, her mom had her when she was a late teenager, almost had more of a competitive thing with Demi. And when she
Who's her
was,
mom? Who's her mom?
her mom's passed away now. She wasn't anybody famous.
She wasn't a fan. Okay.
She was like a cheerleader from Texas who
That's weird
had
that
a
she,
had a boyfriend.
yeah.
She would say things to Demi when she was really young, like, "Oh, just tell people we're sisters," like wanted to. So there was
Yeah, yeah,
definitely a
yeah.
certain competitive element that was hard, and I think you can feel, if you've ever seen her now in
Mhm.
interviews, this woman has done such an immense amount of work on herself, just so much. And you've just, from like a therapy standpoint, the way
Yeah,
she's really knows herself and can talk about the human experience with such a level of depth,
yeah,
and has a close relationship still with her ex-husband Bruce Willis, who they have 3 daughters with.
yeah,
And their 3 daughters, I follow them all on social media, on
yeah.
Instagram.
I was working at a vintage store in Soho in 20, I don't know, 13, and I sold like 10 vintage rock t-shirts to Rumor Willis, and she was really nice. She just tore them off the hangers and put them on the counter, and I sold them to her. But that's a
Nice.
side note. Side note, going back to what you were saying about her mother, I wonder if Demi Moore took a bit of experience of her own experience with her own mother and put it into this role, because she's essentially being competitive when she is
Yeah.
feeling jealous of younger actresses and so forth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, possibly.
Yeah.
Um, I think she's an actor that you think of, to me, think of G.I. Jane. Now, when she shot G.I. Jane, she had just had her youngest daughter, and she
Hmm.
got in shape for that film pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um, Almost too quickly.
Mhm.
And issues happened because of that. Because I think what seems to be the character trait of Elizabeth Sparkle in the film, all her value comes from other people's value of her.
Mm.
And I believe there was a point in Demi's life that that was probably also true.
Of
And it's
course.
hard. Hollywood is really hard, um, to the people who are part of it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's something that's changing. I think if, as we've had the Me Too movement come about, and it's becoming more obvious the ways that women especially can get manipulated, and used in different ways. Hopefully these things are bringing about some change, but ultimately, whatever you're doing in your life, whoever you are, you really have to figure out what you can do to get to that inner child within yourself and give that part of you, your younger self, the love and support that maybe you didn't actually receive.
Yeah, I was thinking of how important it would be if you were in Hollywood to try and keep the big picture in mind. We get caught up in every win along the way, in entertainment. I'll speak for myself, and maybe Erin will agree with me, but you get caught up in the next thing that's going to move you. If I could just get this thing, then I'm going to blow up. If I could just get this
Yeah.
thing, it's going to be, and you make these choices. And if you don't slow down and try and make some really smart choices, some shit's going to blow up in your face. And how important it is for anybody in the entertainment industry to think big picture. What is this going to feel like in 10 years? I mean, I think their spontaneity is important and just being yourself at any age, but you really have to think about like, how is this going to affect me later? Am I going to, do I want to live with this for real forever, or is me in 30 years going to feel proud of what I did here? And it's difficult. I mean, hindsight's 2020. It's difficult to ask younger people to keep that in mind when they have no idea or understanding of the future. You have to know yourself really well to stay. I mean, you make choices, people can't live with them. They get addicted to drugs and do all kinds of crazy shit to escape the choices they've made. And
Mhm.
so in Hollywood, and you see it constant, you see it all the time. So if there's a way to sort of slow down, I mean, in all of that and really protect yourself along the way. I mean, we can think of that at any age. You have to think 20 years down the line all the time. How am I going to feel about this choice that I made? I move here. Am I going to be happy here in 20 years? And blah, 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 blah. And obviously, it's never too late to start loving yourself. It's never too late to own every choice and move on from regret and so forth. But the heartache that you can avoid by just slowing it down a little bit and making just a little bit smarter of a choice every single step of the way in a career where people are buying and selling you. Do you know what I mean? Or to really, I don't know, get some freaking therapy and stay strong through it. So you're processing all this stuff as it's happening to you. I don't know. I just kept thinking about that the whole time because it must be addicting slightly to
Oh
win win
yeah.
win that much in a row. You know what I mean? Just like being,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh, oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Someone once told me, if you lose early on in your career, if you have things not work out for you early on, it's actually a really good thing because
Yeah.
you learn how to deal with it
Oh
early
yeah.
on and can continue to grow rather than everything's good, everything's good, everything's good. And you get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, bigger, bigger, bigger up. And then when something doesn't work out, you haven't built the skill sets and you don't have the tools to help yourself deal with it in a healthy way.
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't have that. And I often kind of can correlate that when we hear these stories of younger actors who have grown up in an industry that just sees them as, filling off something on their list that they need to do. Okay, we need a young kid. Check, there's the young kid. They don't give a shit about that kid,
Yeah.
what he's going through, who he is, does he even fucking know how to read? Who gives a fuck to them? They just need a kid to be on set. Oh, you're
Yeah.
polite. Oh, you're cute. Okay, great. Just keep being cute. Keep being polite. Oh, you want more candy? That will make you happy. Sure, as
Yeah.
long as you sit there and you do what I want, I'll give you what you want. Even if what I'm giving you isn't actually good for you, I don't fucking care because you're just a car to me. You're
Yeah.
just a waffle maker. You're
Yeah.
literally your refrigerator. I don't fucking care. And if you break, not a big deal because you can be replaced very, very easily. And
Yeah.
what sucks about that is how hard that's got to be to realize that
Yeah.
because when you are in something, you feel special,
Yeah.
right? You feel seen. You're actually
Yeah.
not seen at all.
No.
And that to me is can be so fucking damaging.
Yeah.
So damaging. And in one sense it's like kind of better to know, but in the other sense it's like, look, everything moves on.
Yeah.
People change, right? We never
Yeah.
make and look, I understand this conversation, and what I'm saying here is getting kind of tangential because I'm bringing it to a broader place.
Yeah.
I just think it really it underlines the deep, 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 deep importance, which you have also been speaking about as well, of knowing who you are,
Mhm.
grounding into who you are, accepting yourself, the good, the bad, accepting it all,
Yeah.
realizing that any choice you make, good or bad, to me, there is no real bad choices. It's just different roads.
Yeah.
It leads you in a different direction. There's different options. You can have regrets about it, but it doesn't mean you can't change your trajectory and get back to a place you want to go. Sometimes it helps you because oh, I thought I wanted to do this, but actually I don't.
Yeah.
Now it's even more clear. Now I really know I don't want to be here. Well, that's a gift because before it was a maybe. Now I know it's a no.
Yeah.
So now I can definitely go to the other way and have confidence and feel more comfortable knowing this choice that I made wasn't the choice that's making me feel good and ultimately what will be serving me. Let me get back to the other side, right?
Yeah. So you're talking about knowing yourself, right? And I think a lot of people think they're like, I know myself, but they don't understand conceptually
Yes.
really what that means. They don't understand that knowing yourself means where, not necessarily how you are most winning.
Yep.
Knowing yourself is really about where you are at peace, where you are happiest, where you are stabilized, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, people would always be like, I think as a younger woman, I had some identity issues, and everyone always looked at me and said, "You know yourself so well." And I'd be like, that didn't mean anything to me. You know
Yeah.
yourself so well. For me, I was acting spontaneously, impulsively, which is rad, for as long as it works for you. There's a certain point in life that's great in super youthfulness. I never did anything too crazy or too out of whack, but I there are times in my life where I maybe made choices because I just wanted to do what works and kept me winning rather than doing what kept me stabilized and at peace inside. And you actually have more longevity when you do what keeps you more stabilized and more at peace for longer. You're going to work better under those circumstances. You are going to be have better relationships. The better you are doing, the better
Mm-hmm.
everything else is gonna go for you. And like these characters in this movie don't understand that. They see winning as the goal instead of where they are most at peace and where they are most stabilized,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Definitely.
where some of the bad, that's where things take a turn, is when Demi Moore's character sees winning as the more important thing than really knowing herself, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
And one of the things in the film with the character Sue,
Hmm.
who Elizabeth Sparkle seems to not be able to get along with, both of them don't seem to really be able to get along with, though if they were able to get along with each other and figure out how to make it work, wow, that's a totally different movie. And I really thought in some ways that's where we were maybe going in the beginning.
Yeah.
As far as like another kind of revenge film, because there was
No,
those
but
like
it's,
opportunities. And
yeah.
it really is a thing also of getting in your own way. Just
Yeah.
getting in
Oh,
your own
yeah.
way.
The
Eh,
horror is that you can't reconcile
Nope.
that
No matter
that
what you do,
that
it's
things are
still you.
changing, that are things that are changing. Yeah. So if you can't reconcile, the horror is not being able to accept
Who you are.
you're evolving. Yes. Yeah, who you are and evolving. The horror is when you try and stay the same.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So next week,
That feels like a good place to stop. Hey, I want to talk about one music thing. I'm going off on a whim, but it made me think of it because
yeah, tell me.
Margaret Qualley is married to Jack Antonoff.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about how Jack Antonoff is making all these Taylor Swift records and so forth, but really, he made this one record by Lana Del Rey called Norman fucking Rockwell. This is episode we've said fuck a lot. I just wanted to announce that. Maybe it's because we were talking about how this movie was aggressive and so we're feeling like we're allowed to say fuck a lot in this pod today. The album Jack Antonoff made for Lana Del Rey is Norman fucking Rockwell, and I think it's Lana's best album ever. It is absolutely genius, borderline genius. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I was never a huge Lana. I mean, I loved video games. I love, the hits. I liked her vibe. Her aesthetic is very Americana, sort of turning the feminine role in
Mhm.
America on its head. But the Norman fucking Rockwell really talks about the in-betweens of the failing of that, failing at being
Ooh,
what America expects you to be as a woman,
yeah,
and all the weird things you do to try
yeah,
and get a man and keep a man, and all the things that happen when you get your heart broken, but the real nitty gritty of it, drinking too much, drugging too much, things like that, that women do
yeah.
to themselves to punish themselves for not being sort of this American dream.
Mm,
And musically, it's so creative. Lyrically, it's very stream of consciousness. It's not your average pop record, but everyone was saying it was going to win a bunch of Grammys. I believe this is like 2020. It was supposed to win a bunch of Grammys. And Taylor's album that Jack Antonoff also made came in and swept everything under the rug. And hers was like way lighter material, way boppier. And
yeah,
Lana had put out this huge piece of work that was like so emotional and so creative and just weird and great and melodic and spooky and throw
yeah,
lots of sort of throwbacks to the Beatles, lots of Ringo drums, stuff like that.
yeah.
And
I love
so Jack,
spooky.
yeah. So I would say that today's tiny itty bitty baby music segment is on. Go listen to the Lana Del Rey album produced by Jack Antonoff called Norman fucking Rockwell and get your mind blown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will. I kind of am surprised I haven't heard it yet. I
It
was,
was it was during COVID.
yeah, I think
The
I
beginning
was
of yeah.
probably like many people having an out of body experience for most of
That's
that
exactly
situation.
right. That's exactly right. Hmm.
As one does. As
As
one
one
does.
does during a global pandemic.
Oh boy. Oh baby.
So,
So,
I just wanted to bring up that last week on the pod, we said we were going to do the metal episode this week, and we did
yes.
not touch on that. Because this movie came out, Erin and I were like so blown away by it. We decided to push the metal episode back one week.
Yep.
So we're actually going to do the metal episode next week. And so look forward to discussing the end of civilizations, part 1 and 2 at the
Yes. So
very.
you have more time to check it out. So you can be
Mhm.
in the know. And we will be talking next week with that documentary. We're going to be talking about it all, right? We're not going to leave things as spoilers.
No.
We're going to we'll be telling you the spoilers.
Yeah.
Um, it's a documentary. You have to watch it. I think it's like such a interesting, like, talk about, you know, offshoots in American history. This says something about culture. And
Yeah.
it's so cool to kind of tune into those things because it constantly affects things. You walk into an Urban Outfitters right now, I feel like I'm back in high school. I could be buying these clothes and have worn them back in the
Oh
time when I
yeah.
was in high school. It's like
Yeah.
shit repeats. It repeats, it repeats. So the more you know about what happened, the easier it is for you to kind of foreshadow from a situation of trends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where business is going, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk about the whole thing on that one, baby. The
Yeah.
whole thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm really, really excited to talk about that as we get to sit here and joyfully get to hang out again and do
Yeah.
another little time.
I was really inspired by those two movies too. It made me want to go make albums. So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we had a really fun time with you today. Please go see The Substance in your local theater. It matters to go see movies in theaters.
It does. It does. Please support. Please support. All
Please.
right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Emmy.
Bye. Love you.
Love you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.